I scratched my head, they look at me, and then I just kind of like, because I had a pile of dandruff on my shoulder, and I blew it at them.
It's the Quinn Marr Show.
My next guest made his mark on Hannah Montana as one of the most memorable reoccurring characters of the early seasons. Since then, he's upgraded from Disney sidekick to full-on dance floor commander, shaking alongside industry legends and surprising New York with his moves. From flaking on camera to nailing every step on stage, it is my pleasure to welcome to the Quinn Marr Show, Jack Taylor. Jack, how's it going?
Good. How are you today?
I'm good. First off, thank you for hopping on here. This is I'm excited for this one. We talked about this last few weeks, so yeah, no, I'm pumped to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for asking me to come on.
Yeah, of course. So it's funny, like I just mentioned you right before we started, was I had Jalen Palmer on maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, who was the cracker on an episode of Hannah Montana, and we talked about you on there. I can't remember if it was on like during the recording or if maybe it was off camera, but she talked about that she lost contact with you, wanted to be able to reunite with you and everything. So I found your Instagram for her, and then she ends up meeting up with you. I think it was last week or the week before in Utah, where you're at right now. So before we kind of like go back to the beginning of your life, talk about that little reunion you guys had.
Yeah. So the last time I saw her was when we filmed that episode. So it was literally crazy to have this reunion in St. George, Utah, which is such a random place. So I'm currently here performing at the Tuacahn Amphitheater. And so after you helped us reconnect, we've just been messaging back and forth. And then she saw that I was doing this contract and she goes, "Wait, I have family in St. George." And I was like, "You're kidding."
The most random place in the world.
I know. So then, it was like just over a week ago. She messages me and says, "Hey, I'm going to be in St. George this weekend. I'd love to get together." We had dinner. We recreated a couple scenes. It was fun. And then she came and saw me perform in Newsies at Tuacahn Amphitheater.
Oh, that's cool that she was able to come watch you too. That's sweet. And her mom too, because I think it was her mom that filmed the little reunion you guys had, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
She's the best, because for those who don't know, like she's active on social media talking about like child acting, because obviously 3 of her kids were into it, and she's always talking about either the shows and movies they're in, or just like talking about the industry in general. So yeah, she's a really interesting follow. I've been following her for a little bit, so that's really cool that you guys were able to do that.
Yeah.
Can you believe that go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I really enjoyed getting to see her again. I think we did the math. It was 18 years. And I was just like, oh, crazy. And one of the first things that we both said to each other is, "You look exactly the same."
That's good. Can you believe you're talking about years? Can you believe that in like 8 months, it's going to be 20 years since Hannah Montana premiered?
Yes.
It's wild.
I know, it's crazy. I'm like, wow. I mean, I loved that show. Especially, I was only on season 1, but I just felt like the magic that was happening, we literally didn't know what was going to happen. My first episode, the first episode that I was on filming, the first episode of Hannah Montana hadn't even aired. So we were all like filming this show that we're like, we have no idea whether it's going to be like, everybody knew obviously it would be successful. We were on like episode 14 when I showed up. But nobody knew that it would be the spectacle that it is today.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there, because we're going to talk about that. I want to go back really quick. So I talked about this before we started, was trying to just figure out things about you, research where you're from, everything. So you were born in Pennsylvania. So taking me through, like, what was like a young Jack interested in? Was it reading? Was it sports? Was it science? Was it dance right away? What was exactly going on in little Jack's mind in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then pretty quickly, me and my parents moved to San Jose, California. My dad had a job offer. We moved out to California. And then, so that was when I was around 2. And then when I was about 7, we moved down to LA. I grew up in Long Beach. That's like definitely home for me. And so within that time frame of living in Long Beach, I had done all the very typical sports. I tried soccer. I wasn't very good at it. I was kind of the on-field coach. I would just run around. Like, I didn't really want to get in on the action. So I would just kind of run around and be like, yay, you got it. I did Taekwondo. I got all the way to a black belt. Wow. I think that was really what kind of got me into dancing specifically, because the story that my parents love to tell is so in Taekwondo, what we do are forms, which is basically like choreographed sets of Taekwondo moves put into certain sequences. And I had been like performing a little bit, like I had done random, just like community things or like school events. And I loved the performative aspect of it. So I asked my parents, I was like, hey, I have something to show you. And I put 2 little chairs in my room for my parents to sit in. And I had a bunk bed, and the bottom half of the bunk bed had a sheet that I used as a curtain. And so I put on, it was either NSYNC or Britney Spears. And I like push play, and then I burst through my little curtains and I did all my little Taekwondo forms and was like, I'm going to be a choreographer.
And they're like, yeah, let's cancel the membership for the Taekwondo. Get this guy into dance. That's so fun.
Yeah. And then my parents were like, well, maybe we should try out a dance class.
Wow. Huh. Yeah. So, and what did your parents do for jobs? Like, did they do anything to do with that kind of stuff? Like acting or dance or anything?
Yeah. I like to call my parents muggles. I like to say that, you know, anyone in the artistic world is a wizard, and anybody not in the artistic world is a muggle. My parents, you know, my mom did real estate, my dad worked in IT. But they both were very musically inclined. Like, they both sang. My mom plays piano, my dad plays guitar. But neither of them, it's very much a hobby. So it was a little unexpected for me to be a dancer. It was more expected for me to be either a musician or singer. Huh. But what made me fall in love with dancing was tap dancing, which I definitely curate as an instrument. Like, you're curating movement with sound. So that's kind of my like ode to being some sort of musician in the family.
No, that's cool though. Do you have siblings?
Nope, I'm an only child.
Oh, no way. Because I was gonna say like, oh, what were they into? But no, that makes sense, and that's even better because especially if someone that's gonna get into what you did like that, I feel like that's a lot of focus that your parents put onto you, or that if there needed to be a lot of focus on you for that. So that actually sounds like it kind of helped too.
Yeah, I was really, really fortunate. So, so when I started like really training as a dancer, I was like, okay, we're gonna like really commit to this. I was probably about 11, and my parents pulled me out and homeschooled me. And so it was my parents, my grandma, and my grandfather that all homeschooled me throughout middle school. And it was super funny because it was like my grandfather did history, my grandmother did English, my mom did math, and my dad did science. So it was kind of like in middle school when you start like changing teachers. So like,
how do you take any of that serious though when it's your family doing it? I wouldn't have been able to.
I mean, you know, we would work for a couple hours and then I'd go to dance.
Yeah, fair.
But you know, it was through a school program, and I had to show that I actually did homework every week. So it was through like a homeschool program at an actual school. So we would go weekly, I think, or maybe every other week. And we would like, just kind of be like, this is the lesson plan we did, and this is how we did it. And then I would like any standardized testing that I had to do, I did at the school. So it was still like, it wasn't just me hanging out with my parents being like, all right, let's 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah, the simplest stuff. Yeah, no, okay, that's fair. That makes more sense than that. You had to prove your work.
Yes.
So it was like 11 when it was like, hey, like dance, like I'm really, really serious about dance at this point.
Yeah. So when I was 11, so my grandmother, she's not with us anymore, but she really, really pushed my artistic endeavors like a lot. Like, she was the reason that my parents pulled me out, because my grandmother was like, we'll do it. She was like, we got this. Like my mom, My grandmother and my grandfather were all teachers. So they're like, we can do this. They're like, we've already taught kids before. It'll be a lot easier to teach one kid that we know. So my grandmother was very much like, we're going to make this happen, because I, after I started actually really being like, I want to dance, my parents took me to the Debbie Allen Dance Academy. And whilst I was there, I thought I was showing up for an open class, but I ended up being there for the audition of the program that they have. So we show up and they look at my mom and they're like, hey, where's his headshot and resume? And my mom's like, his what? And then they throw a number on me and they go, get in there. And I walk into what I don't know is an audition. It's my first audition ever. And they had us go through a bunch of different styles of dance. One of the biggest things that Debbie Allen really preaches on is not being only trained in one specific style of dance. Like, she's very, very big on being the most versatile dancer that you can possibly be. So the audition consisted of like ballet. We did a little bit of tap. We did a little bit of jazz. We did African. We did modern. They also offer flamenco and Dunham, salsa. Like there's a huge variety of classes that you can take there. But for the audition, we just did a couple little ones. And I just made it all the way to the end of the audition. And then they pull our parents into the room. And then Miss Allen walks in and she says, we'd like to congratulate you. Your children have been chosen to be a part of the academy. And I was like, whoa, what does this mean? Because then that turned into 5 ballet classes a week, 3 modern classes a week, 2 flamenco classes, 2 tap classes, 3 jazz classes a week. So I ended up dancing from like 4 to 8, Monday through Friday. And then Saturday it was like a 9 to 5 situation. And I did, like 24 hours worth of dance a week. But it was the best training that I've ever had, especially I was in like 6th grade at the time. So it was a really great way for me to develop amazing skills that I still feel like I carry with me today. The mentors that I had growing up in that program are still very much in the back of my brain every time that I perform. Like, okay, we need to do it this way.
What a nerve-wracking feeling, though, all of a sudden for you thinking like, oh, it's this thing. No, it's actually an audition. We're not sure if we want you here yet. Now go show us that you deserve to be here.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I was very oblivious. I had no idea what was actually going on. I was just like, cool, now we're doing this. Like, okay.
So it was your mom, if anything, that was nervous and not you.
Yeah, well, I think my mom and my grandmother was there too. I think the two of them were still kind of like, what's happening? You know what I mean? And then when I think they realized what was going on, they're like, I mean, let's see what happens.
Fair.
So then when I got the acceptance into the academy, that's when my mom was like, how are we going to do this? Like, this is a real commitment. And then my grandmother was like, we're going to pull them out of school. We'll homeschool during the day. And then they also helped drive me up to LA, because where I was living in Long Beach, it was probably like a 25-minute commute to get there. So yeah, it was definitely a commitment, and I'm always so grateful that my parents were like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to figure this out.
So when I was a kid, I always wanted to be an actor. I just wanted to, or just be famous. It was mainly an actor. Then it was being famous. Then it was do broadcasting. So there was always something I knew I wanted to aim towards from like a young age. For you in dancing, what was that like pinnacle thing that you wanted to hit? Obviously that may be different now, but then like, what's like in your head? Oh, okay, this means I made it.
Yeah. I think around that age, I very much wanted to be a choreographer. I was like, I want, like, one of my favorite things to do when I was little was learn music videos. I just thought they were so amazing. They're so magical. And I'm so happy that music videos are kind of like back in style.
Yes.
Because there was definitely a time period in which music videos just weren't big at all. So I'm really happy that we're kind of in this new wave of people really putting production value into music videos again, just because I think they're so magical. But
they got lazy for a while there.
Yeah.
There wasn't much to them. It was just like, I guess we got to do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that for you, that's what you wanted to do. You saw music videos like, oh my God, like that'd be so cool. Like either whatever it was, you just wanted to choreograph something, the big stuff.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to perform with an artist. Like I was like, I want to be not necessarily on tour. I don't think that was ever really my goal, but I really wanted to be like in a music video with an artist that I really loved.
Right. So you would have loved someone like Kenny Ortega with High School Musical because I mean, one, it was on Disney, and two, it was the it thing back then, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, fair. So then where does acting come into all of this? If your sole focus is all on dancing, how did you start acting? Because like you said, the only thing you ever really did like credit like professional was Hannah Montana, and then the rest is dancing. So I need you to explain this.
Yeah. So I always took acting classes. When I was younger, before I even started dancing, I was doing a lot of acting just like through my school. Like we did Charlie Brown Christmas, and I was Charlie Brown. Like they were very much, I loved performing. I loved being on a stage and just going ham. And they also offered acting classes at Debbie Allen Dance Academy. So what happened was I'm living in LA, I'm dancing at Debbie Allen Dance Academy, and Miss Allen is also directing episodes on like That's a Raven. She's appearing on Grey's Anatomy. Like there's very much this also at the Academy, they very encourage like go work. They're like, you're here to train, but also like go do things. So there was a random audition for a background agency, and I went to it. And when I was amongst the panel of people, they had me do random things, and then I ended up signing with one of the background agencies, which then that led to them calling me. This is like I said, this is before the show has even come out. All we're seeing are these like stamped on Hannah Montana, and we see Miley Cyrus, and it's like Hannah Montana coming out soon, right? The hype around it is big. It wasn't even very clear at the time if it was a movie or a TV show. It was just kind of like Hannah Montana. Everybody was like, it was the buzzword, right? So my mom gets a call from our background agency saying, hey, Jack has been submitted to do this. Do you want to go? And I'm like crying on the floor. I'm like, I need to go. And my mom says, okay, cool, let's go. So we show up day one, and the woman who was in charge of all of the background kids goes, I know you. And I'm standing there and I'm like, I don't know. And then she asks me, she says, do you dance at Debbie Allen Dance Academy? And I was like, yeah, I do. And then she says, my daughter also dances there. I recognize you from the recitals. And I was like, oh, okay, that's great. So then it just so happened that specific episode that I showed up on, she had to pick a kid with dark hair to play this very one-off background Dandruff Danny character. It's the episode that I don't have any lines because it was never written to be that way. It's the episode where everybody's looking at Jake, the cool kid, and Miley, Mitchell, and Emily are like in the back, and they go, oh yeah, it's so much cooler next to Dandruff Danny. And literally I was just kind of standing there. They're like, okay, kid, this is what you got to do. All you have to do is just like scratch your head and like look at the popular kid. And I was like, okay, got it. So we did one take, and I just like scratching my head, and I'm like, okay. So now they're like, okay, let's do it again. And me in my little 11-year-old, or I was probably about 12, in my little 12-year-old, I've taken an acting class before. I go, okay, what's my motivation here? And so I'm like, if they were like saying it's so cool next to Dandruff Danny, and I'm obviously not cool, like I'd be kind of pissed off. So on the next take, I scratched my head. They look at me, and then I just kind of like, because I had a pile of dandruff on my shoulder, and I blew it at them. And the director comes up and goes, that was great. Do that again. So then it kind of like spun off into this thing where it became a little bit of a bit more than just like, oh, it's just this random character, right? So then after that had happened, they ended up, the Disney calls my mom and says, hey, we'd love to have him come in and read lines. We're considering writing him into the script. So that was my official audition as Dandruff Danny, was going in, and they had me read random. They had, you know, whatever they had curated at the time. They just wanted to hear my voice. They wanted to see if I could act in general. And then they wrote me into the script from that moment.
That makes sense. Okay, because the actual first episode, like that you show up in, is the Dolly Parton one. Did you know that?
Yes.
Yeah. So, which is a crazy way to premiere onto a show, is an episode with Dolly Parton. Did you get to meet Dolly? I know you weren't in any scenes with her, but
yeah, I did get to meet her. I have a couple photos with her. She's super sweet. She's so kind. It was amazing. I didn't even really recognize at the time because I was so young, like how big of a deal that was. But she was just like, I knew she was an icon because, you know, I was like, oh, this is Dolly Parton. But it was kind of funny because my parents were definitely way more like, oh my God, do you know what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like my mom was like, the director is Fred Savage and like, you're working with Billy Ray. Like,
I didn't know Fred Savage directed some episodes.
He directed an episode. He directed the one Schooly Bully with Jalen.
Oh, okay, with Jalen. No way. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, and that's the other weird thing about it. The fact that it wasn't on air yet. Like, you don't really know Miley Cyrus. You could possibly know Billy Ray if you're a bit older. You don't know Emily. You don't know Mitchell, and you don't know the show Hannah Montana. So that's a weird dynamic to kind of go into, especially for you joining in the middle of the season. Yeah, it might have been testing well, but you don't know that. So it's like you know what everyone else is talking about in your friend group. What they watched on TV. So that must have felt really weird, like not knowing if it was going to be like big or not.
Yeah. So that was the interesting part, was so that very first episode that we filmed, which also just a little bit more information on what happened. So it also just so happened that the group of background kids that showed up, the episode that I showed up, they ended up deciding to keep like 10 of us as the like the school kids, like the kids that are always in the classroom. So then like the 10 of us ended up doing like 10 episodes all together because they just kept having us come back for these classroom scenes. So then what became interesting was so the first episode that I had filmed was the one that I just scratched my head. And then I did like 2 more episodes as just background. And then when they started writing me into the script, I then would still be considered background if I wasn't written into the script, but they would have me like as Dandruff Danny in background scenes.
That's so strange because like technically, officially, Dandruff Danny's in 4 episodes, like credited where you talk. So then, how does that work? Like, are you still getting? I guess you would still get paid. Is the pay different if you had lines versus if you're just background? How does that work?
Yeah. So on the very first episode that I did, because I had a name, I didn't have any lines, but because I was an official character, I ended up getting a little bit of a pay bump. I think it was like $50 for the day. And then once I was actually in the script, there's the magic number is 5 lines. And so if you're under 5 lines, there's a certain like pay grade for it. And then once you have more than 5 lines, you're then considered just a bigger role in general. So you get like a huge pay bump. It goes from like, I don't remember all the details, but under 5 lines is like a certain pay grade. And then once you go over 5 lines, you get like X amount of money per line.
Oh, so wow. So it's a big bump.
It's a big bump. It's a huge bump.
Wow.
And so I remember on one of the episodes, I had initially started with like 6 lines, and I was like, oh, like everyone in my family was like, oh my God, like you've got 6 lines. And then by the end, they had me at 5, and I was like, oh, I didn't get the bump.
Oh my God. They couldn't really just do you a favor and give you 1 more. That's brutal.
Yeah. And I don't think it has anything to do with payment. I think it literally just had to do with they were editing that script a lot. Like almost every day we were getting a new edit on what the lines in the script was. So at the end of the episode, it ended up being 5 or less. so yeah, so I ended up not getting that like specific pay bump, but it was fun at the beginning of the week when I was like, oh my God, like I'm like considered like a bigger recurring character now.
I was just going to say the one where it felt like you could have had over that 5 was the one with the popularity list. But I guess I'm wrong. But yeah, because you started off in the episodes, you're in the middle, and I think you might have been in it again. Like you spoke again at the end. Yes. I just rewatched your episodes yesterday. So I thought maybe that could have been the one, but no, I guess not.
Yeah.
That would have been the closest.
I honestly don't remember which episode that was the possibility.
Yeah.
But I do remember that happening and it being just like really exciting for like a day. We were like, oh my God, 6 lines. And then like by the end of the day, it was 5. And we're like, okay, cool.
What was like the standard, like what, like when you guys would do, like you guys did table reads, obviously, would it just be like the standard regular thing you would see when you do that? Like everyone there?
If I'm being completely honest, I don't even remember a table read.
Really?
I don't think we did them.
Huh.
I could be completely lying. I'm going off of my like 20 years behind self.
Yeah.
I don't remember table reads, if I'm being completely honest.
Now, let's say you're correct. That would be very interesting for something like Disney Channel not to do, I would feel like. Because I feel like they were so to the book and like needed to nail everything perfectly.
Yeah.
At the same time, they're a massive engine. So they do it their way. It works regardless.
Yeah, I'm pretty positive it was because when I was Dandruff Danny as well, I only had to show up on the days that I was actually filming. I didn't have to show up because every week was a new episode. So that was kind of the nice thing too. When I was background, I had to go almost every day. But when I was Dandruff Danny, I only had to go like 2 days in the week.
That's so weird that you're technically playing 2 different people. Either you were Dandruff Danny or you're Dandruff Danny in the background. Like that's so strange.
Yeah.
It's a good way to save money on their end.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it also just had to do with like I think my character specifically, because it was never like I was written into the script. I think they also just got to a point where they had too many recurring characters because it when it came to season 2, what ended up happening was I showed up on day 1 because they called our group of school kids, but they had transitioned into high school. And so I show up and the woman who like got me Dandruff Danny, who was running background, was like, I'm so sorry, but I have to hide you today because you're not written into season 2. Like they couldn't have me as a face character because I was background for the day. So they couldn't have me as a recognizable face in an episode when they weren't planning on having me in the season. So yeah, so like that whole day I was like scheduled to work the week. And then that entire day she had me kind of just like very much in the background. and then but the next day I like wasn't called. And then they said like, we're so sorry, but Jack is not continuing as Dandruff Danny moving forward, basically.
And that was it. Just like that. No more Dandruff Danny.
Yeah.
Wow. Were you a little bitter about that?
No, because I was really missing dance. Like I was missing a lot of dance at Debbie Allen Dance Academy. And I really wanted to do it. Like I was like, oh, like I want to be training. I want to be dancing. Like it's not that acting is never something that I like don't want to do. But I very much just like loved dancing just so much. And not that I disliked being on set, but it was dark. You know what I mean? I had to do school and then we would like go and do our scene and then we'd go back upstairs and keep doing school. I was just kind of like, okay, like I had a lot of energy as a kid, so I wanted to do something. And it was just a little too slow, I think, for me growing up. I was like, oh, I want to like, I need to get some stuff out.
I guess, and there's a lot of waiting around too.
Yes.
Right? Like when they need to move stuff and set things up. So I know you just mentioned like all you miss dance, but like while you're in the midst of doing these episodes for Hannah Montana, did you ever think like, hey, maybe I want to keep doing more acting, or was it no? I just I kind of miss dance.
It was always really centered around dancing, and I always felt like I was able to act while dancing as well. There was never an aspect of me that I'm like, okay, I'm like quitting an acting career here. And I think as well, at a very young age, what it made very clear for me was I much prefer live theater to commercial work. Mm-hmm. just because I really thrive off of like, okay, it's live theater, it's one and done. If something goes wrong, you make it work, as opposed to, okay, stop, reset, do it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think
that's
the
fair.
resetting for me as a kid with ADD was not fun.
Oh yeah, I would feel that. I had ADD too as a kid, so yeah, I don't think I would have been able to handle it. Did you
Yeah.
continue to follow Hannah Montana as it was coming on air after you were done?
Oh yeah, I loved
Did
it.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you
Oh,
get
yeah,
like
I
recognized
mean,
places too as Dandruff Danny?
sorry, say that again.
Did you get recognized as Dandruff Danny places after that?
Oh my God, yes, all the time.
Really?
Yeah, it was it. Yeah,
That's
like
kind of
even,
tough because it's like that's amazing because you're on like the biggest Disney Channel show of all time, but at the same time you played a kid with dandruff, so it's like people are
yeah.
yelling that name in public. That could be kind of a tough situation.
I never. It's actually so funny. I never, by any means, was like, ew. I'm like gross. Like I really enjoyed the lore. I was like, this is kind of cool. This is kind of fun. Um, and yeah, when people were like, people, especially when I was younger, like when I first, so okay, so then after Hannah Montana and Debbie Allen Dance Academy, I went to Orange County School of the Arts. And when I was in that transition period into high school, I looked, obviously, I had just filmed Hannah Montana, so I looked identical to myself. So I show up to the audition for this art school, and everyone around me like, you know what I mean? Like whispering, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So I auditioned for the musical theater program, and I also auditioned for the commercial dance program. And I really wanted to do the musical theater program just because I had done so much dancing. Because I kind of wanted to get just back into my acting bag, and I had never really trained vocally. So I was very much like, I want to broaden my horizons. And I ended up getting accepted into the musical theater department and the commercial dance department. And I chose the musical theater department. And my first day at school was crazy. Everyone was staring at me. I was like, okay, I think people are recognizing me.
There were a
And
lot
like
of people
by
come
the
up
end
to
of
you and
the
be like, "Oh my
day,
God, like, do you know Miley? Can you get Miley? Give me her number, like things like
yes.
that."
Oh my God. Everyone asks me that. Every single, especially at the time when it was so fresh and episodes were still coming out, everyone was like, so you know Miley Cyrus? And I was like, yeah. And then immediately the second question is always, do you have her number? And I was like, even if I did, I'm not giving it to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that'd be crazy. I'm not doing that.
Can you ask her to
Um,
come to my birthday party? Just like the most like off like the craziest things they would probably
yeah.
ask. That's wild. Did you have any like weird interactions as like Dandruff Danny? Like people come up and like ask either for like a weird thing or say a weird thing to you, like anything like that?
Nothing weird, no. But
No.
what was fun for like, especially in my youth, was a lot of people would always ask for like a signed headshot or something. Like my parents would constantly be like, hey, could you like, it would just come up in conversation, and then my mom would be like, oh, like my friend's daughter really loves Hannah Montana, can you sign an autograph for her? Excuse me. So I did a lot of like headshot signing, and we would like ship them out. That was probably the weirdest, but I didn't even find it that strange because I feel like that's pretty not
Standard.
typical. But I just, yeah, I didn't find it like no stalking. You know what I mean? Nobody was ever like, oh my God, like I'm like I have a fetish for dandruff. You know what I mean? Like there was no like borderline issue. It was always just like, oh, that's super cool. Like, can I get a headshot signing? And I said, sure. And then we
Right, that's hilarious. Well, on the topic of Miley, like Miley, Emily, Mitchell, like how were they to work with? In all honesty, like were you close with them all? Did you chat with them much off camera? Like what was that whole dynamic like for you?
yeah, Miley is amazing. Absolutely amazing. I have no notes. She's literally, because we were 12. We were all the same age. I think Mitchell was a little bit older. Maybe he was like a year or two older. But you know, the majority of us as reoccurring characters as well, we were all in that like 12 to 13 age range. Um, and she was just so sweet. Like whenever I would have a scene with her, or even when I was switching back and forth between background and being in the scene, there's a very strict line between the two. So if I was like very much background for the week, if she saw me in passing, she would always say hi. She would always be like, "Oh my God, how's your day?" You know what I mean? We were never close friends by any means, but she was just such a sweetheart. I never felt like there was ever any sort of diva attitude. You know what I mean? It was always very genuine. And that was a big thing that my parents really liked about going on the show was it felt like a family. It didn't feel, especially because it was her dad and her, like it never felt like there was this very like LA quality to being on set.
Yeah.
Her family was always there. Her little sisters were always there. Her mom was always there. It was very much a family affair.
And that's a great thing to hear because like being someone like being the viewer like me, knowing that like the people I used to watch on TV were actual genuine people, makes it so much better. Like me and my fiance, we're always still watching Disney Plus. We watch Hannah Montana, Sweet Life. We watch that stuff all the time still. So it's nice to know that like what we're watching is that they were genuine people.
Yeah. Well, especially like, I mean, I don't know how much of this has to do today, but like going back to what I said, it hadn't even aired yet. You know what I mean? Like,
right. That's true.
No idea that the show was going to take off as much as it did. So I think that's even more telling that like there's like Miley was just such a doll. You know what I mean? Like she was just like, this is so much fun. I'm just running around being Miley. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was really a very special time, I think, for everyone for that first season.
Yeah.
Just because then when the episode started airing and it had good traction, then we were all really excited to be there. We're like, oh, this is doing well. You know what I mean?
Well, it's crazy that at its absolute height, it was pulling in 10 million viewers per episode, which is insane. It's crazy. Like I was pretty sure it was the highest Disney Channel show viewer wise, but I asked ChatGPT yesterday, and it is by a lot. It's Hannah Montana and everybody else.
Yes, I remember. Crazy. I think at the time, That's So Raven was the highest, and then Hannah Montana blew it out of the water.
And there was like that weird line of like different generations of Disney Channel. Like you had the one where it would have been like Even Stevens, Lizzie McGuire, That's So Raven. Yes. And then it kind of, there was like a little bit of a merge with That's So Raven, Hannah Montana, and Sweet Life. Yes. I mean, clearly they had an episode together. And then it kind of went into, okay, Sweet Life on deck, Hannah Montana, Pair of Kings, let's say. I'm just trying to think of ones that are on at the same time. All Wizards of Waverly Place were in that group. So it was like kind of three generations that like would merge into each other as it went on. And broke more records, but Hannah Montana stayed as like the top dog. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, I think even today, like it's crazy 20 years later, kids still being like, you were on Hannah Montana. Like it has really, like the generations have also lasted, which I think is crazy. Like I really didn't think post, like, how do I describe this? So when I went into high school and everybody was like, you were on Hannah Montana, I really didn't think like after high school that it would like continue to be a thing. But then I started teaching dance to kids that were like 10 years younger than me. And they were still, when they would find out that I was on Hannah Montana, they were just as excited. And I was like, okay, cool. And then even still today, like, now I'm working at Tuacahn Amphitheater and we're doing The Wizard of Oz. So we have little kids playing Munchkins. And when the Munchkins, who are 20 years younger than me, are also like, you were on Hannah Montana? I'm like, how has this lasted now? You know, like it's like 2 generations worth of kids watching this show.
That's insane. Like obviously, I mean, one being the biggest show on the channel, but at the same time, I think Disney Plus becoming a thing changed everything.
Yes.
And it hasn't even been up that long. I think it's been like 6 years, maybe. I think it was 2019 it might have came out. But like just the benefit of, or the ability to go watch Hannah Montana on demand whenever you want, I think is massive.
Yeah.
Right. So I was actually just going to ask if you still get recognized as Dandruff Danny, which is crazy. And like the fact that like, I mean, you mentioned how it's kind of going on generations. I mean, this was a show I watched when I was 10. I always say there's no one misses being a kid more than I do. hence this podcast is all about nostalgia. So that's insane that you're still getting that from kids that are 20 years younger than you.
Yes. And what's actually funny, so I was in a show. I now live in New York City. And when I was in this new cast of dancers, there's this one female dancer who apparently didn't tell me that she recognized me, but she was fangirling for like weeks. And then I just like randomly posted some sort of like either like happy anniversary Hannah Montana or like just something related to Dandruff Danny. And she commented being like, I have literally like kept this a secret for you for weeks that I've recognized you. And this is all the confirmation that I needed.
Do you get like, I mean, you sound like you did with like the little kids, but like, let's say people your age, are you surprised when they mention to you, hey, I know you're Dandruff Danny?
I would say yes, just because I do look very similar to how I was when I was younger, but obviously there's a little bit missing on top.
Yes, that's true.
And I do find it actually hysterical that my claim to fame is somebody with a full head of hair and dandruff, and now I'm bald.
Pretty ironic, yeah.
I just find it so funny. So yeah, I do find it funny when people find out now. And what's actually like, I think even funnier. So one of my best friends from high school, which I mentioned, the high school craze was crazy, right? So then I have now stayed friends with her. I was just in her wedding last year. And she tells me, she goes, yeah, she's like, there's this moment where like, you know, I knew you were Dandruff Danny when we were younger. And then I kind of forget. And then every once in a while, there's a moment that I remember. And then I fangirl just as hard. And I was like, you're kidding. She's like, I'm not kidding. She's like, I like completely forget you're just my friend. Like we've known each other for decades now. And then she's like, then I have these moments of remembering.
The lines get blurred between who Jack is and who Danny is real quick with her.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Actually, you mentioned New York. So like, this is like one of my dream places to live. I never even visited. It's an 8-hour drive for me. Never even been, but I've always talked about, I've always wanted to live there. So one, how long have you lived there?
Mm-hmm.
And two, have you eventually got bored of like the Central Park, the ferry rides, the Times Square, like the tourist things of New York?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So after high school, I went to college and I danced throughout college. I got my dance degree. And then I had this moment where I really wanted to start getting into theater. And I was like, I really want to push outside of LA. I had lived there for so long and I just felt really comfortable. And I had this moment of, okay, I need to move out of LA. I need to do something else. And I was torn between New York and Chicago, actually, because I had just gotten my dance degree and was in my contemporary dance era. And I was like, okay, I can either go more theater or I can go more contemporary. And I ended up deciding to go more contemporary. I went to Chicago because it was a lot cheaper than New York. I didn't have to worry as much about money. So I said, let's do it. Which then, being in Chicago, led me to perform on cruise ships because I auditioned for Royal Caribbean out there, which then led me to Holland America Line. And so Holland America, what they do is they outsource all of their entertainment. And one of the entertainment groups that they use is called RWS Global. And they're based in New York. So I'm now working for Holland America. I'm in New York for these rehearsals for this cruise ship. And as I'm here in New York for these rehearsals, I'm looking around at all my peers that are living fine. And I'm like, why have I skipped out on living in New York for the past 5 years? I was like, I need to move here after this contract. So I finished that contract and I moved to New York in 2023. So I've been living in New York now for the past 2 years. And it's been the best decision I've ever made because I really, my new focus is theater. I really, really want to break into Broadway and just being more a part of just, I've been dancing for so long now. I've done a lot of dance heavy shows that I want to now go kind of back to where I was before with the more acting and singing and really just develop those skills even more than what I did when I was younger. which has led me now to Tuacon, where we're doing the Wizard of Oz, Newsies, and the Little Mermaid for the season. So that's what brought me to New York.
Right.
And then living in New York, I very much avoid all of the tourist areas.
Do you? So you went when you went there the first time, you kind of hit them all, got them out of your system, and then you're like, yeah, I don't want to go near there anymore.
It's not so much that I don't want to go near, because if you're going to see a Broadway show, you're going to be in Times Square. There's no option around that.
True.
So it's not that I don't frequent there. It's just that, like, once I started, so I started working for the McKittrick Hotel, which houses Sleep No More. I don't know if you've heard of Sleep No More.
No, I didn't until I did some research on it, and I do want to talk about that.
Yeah. So the hotel itself, it's most well known for the show called Sleep No More, but they have all these sub shows that are also in there. So I was in a show called Hypnotique. So I worked at the McKittrick. The Sleep No More was like the first 5 stories, and then we were on the 6th story with our own venue. So once I started, because that's in Chelsea. So once I started kind of going more towards Chelsea, and I lived in Queens, I lived in Sunnyside. So I lived just outside of the city. It's like, from where my apartment was, it took 15 minutes to get to Midtown. It was super close to everything from there. And I did a lot of training at Steps on Broadway, which is in the Upper West Side. So once I was on the train and in, I kind of just went, if this is the island, I kind of from Midtown went this way.
Right. Fair.
So yeah, I didn't spend a ton of time in that like Central Park, Times Square area, just because that's not where I lent my time in terms of, I was performing a little bit further south and I was training a little further north.
Right. No, that's fair. Yeah. You got to talk about Hypnotique, because in just the hotel in general, because I have heard like about like the dark corridors, the mask, the secret rooms. Like there's a lot about this hotel that I was reading about yesterday. Can you kind of give me like your view on it? Because it sounds really interesting.
Yeah. So Sleep No More is amazing. It's produced by Punch Drunk, and then Immersive is the company that like housed it through the McKittrick Hotel. So Punch Drunk curated this immersive experience, and this is really the catalyst of immersive theater. Anything that you can pretty much like boil it back down to Sleep No More as the catalyst of this new wave of immersive experiences, right? So what happens when you see a Sleep No More show is you put a mask on, and that distinguishes the difference between an audience member and a performer. The performers don't have masks on, the audience members do. And you're supposed to kind of be, as an audience member, you're supposed to be this sort of like ghost or shadow amongst the group. So they very much tell you, you can't have your phone in there. You can't speak once you've put on the mask and entered the venue. There's no aspect of you being a part of it unless you're invited in. So this is a little bit of the training that we had. So our show is different. Our show was they called it a sexy spectacle. And it was a late night show intentionally. So it didn't even start until like 10:30. And it was a show really building up women specifically. And it was about like kind of putting them above everything. So all of our choreography, like they would always be on some sort of either platform or they'd be just on top to some degree. And then our jobs as the male performers was to kind of be their protectors. They were supposed to be kind of like goddesses. So we would like kind of curate the scene. And so going into like this training that we had was, if you were to invite an audience member in, you would offer your hand. And then if they take it, then you would like direct them to where you needed them to go. Because in Sleep No More, what happens is they have all these secret rooms that you can go into. And you can't get into them unless a performer invites you in. And so there's a bunch of different vignettes that happen alongside the like main event of the show. And it's it's crazy to me the way that somebody was able to curate it, because it's along 5 stories of a hotel. There is one soundscape playing amongst the space that then in other rooms has different sounds happening, that somehow everybody knows to like meet back at like the main ballroom scene at this very specific time to do this one thing. And then everybody goes, poof, and then you follow them and you run up these stairs and you go to all these different places. And you just discover the space within like a 3-hour time period.
That's insane.
Yeah. So one more thing is the show runs itself 3 times in a row. So
Wow.
That's how you kind of, what's cool about it is if you've seen something, my suggestion is always to like, if you start recognizing that you're like seeing something again, like go somewhere else, go find a different character to follow, go to a different room, because something else is happening in another space.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it, I mean, this might be a stupid question. Is it hard, like when you're doing things where you're like going all over the place, is it like hard not to break character at that point?
I'd say the hardest part is you don't know, like when we're in rehearsal for specifically Hypnotique, we would be like, let's try this. But then we would have no idea if it would work until the space was full of bodies.
Right. Because it's situational.
Exactly. So we were like, okay, let's try. There was a specific transition where, excuse me, what we had originally done was we had these platforms sort of on the outskirts of the venue that we then had to like get into a line. So when we first originally set it, we were kind of like, the idea was that we would like go through the crowd to kind of like intentionally cause a little bit of chaos. So people were like, what's happening? You know what I mean? But then it had gotten to a point that it was a little bit dangerous because we weren't getting set up in time for our musical cue. So then what we ended up doing was we kind of rearranged the settings so that we could get them all into a line already and then push them straight down through the space so that it was already just set up. And we all were kind of like, this should work in theory. We'll see if it happens when there's bodies in the space.
Wow.
And it ended up working significantly better because we were able to like guide everybody else to a different spot in the room. But yeah, I'd say
so nerve-wracking though.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And I was a swing for that show.
Oh my God.
I had to constantly change spots, which also it's not. I've been in a swing position a lot. I've been a dance captain often and had to swing in. But in that show, it was hard because there were very specific things that we had to do to like push the crowd to go different places so that they knew what was going on. So there was just a lot of details outside of the performance aspect of like if I needed to make way, like make literally like part the seas, there were like certain things that you would have to do in order to make it happen. And you just had to know, like, I'm in charge of making that happen. You know what I mean? In this specific role.
Wow. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. Yeah. Speaking of places in New York, have you ever been to the Box?
I haven't.
You haven't? Okay, I was hoping to see. I was wondering if you had any stories about it. I've heard a lot of crazy things about that place.
Yeah. So one of my coworkers from Hypnotique works at the Box, though.
Okay.
And he is absolutely stunning. Just like one of the best dancers ever. So it doesn't surprise me that he performs at the Box. But from what I've heard and what I've seen, it's definitely the place to be if you want to have a good time.
Would you want to perform there?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, you would?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. For those who don't know about it, there's a lot you can search up. I've heard some stories that it can get pretty crazy there.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's from what I know, there's always sort of like a theme for each night, so you can have a good time regardless. Like even if you're not in the theme, it's just it's a party. It's a huge party with like performances also happening.
You're talking about being in Utah, so you're doing 3 shows there. So how long are you out there for if you're doing 3 shows? Yeah,
so our contract started in March and we are here until October.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, it's a long contract, but it's very fulfilling because this is like my first time really doing musical theater work. So I'm learning a ton, especially vocally. I've always known that I could carry a tune, but I've never like extensively trained or even really like performed vocally. So it is kind of crazy now being in Newsies and having to sing solo lines. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Like we're really stepping out of our comfort zone here.
Right. There's a lot of singing. There's a lot of singing in that. So this must give you an itch to be back on screen in some capacity, no?
Yeah. When I post, okay, so our rehearsal schedule has been kind of crazy. So we opened The Wizard of Oz and Mermaid in May. And then what we've been doing is we've been rehearsing Newsies and performing The Wizard of Oz and Little Mermaid at the same time. And now we've just opened Newsies. That's when Jalen saw it. Jalen saw one of the opening previews. And so now our schedule has become a lot lighter because now we're just performing in the evenings.
Nice.
Which is why I was like, oh, this actually works out perfectly with my schedule to do the podcast today.
Yeah. Sweet. That works for me. Yeah, because you're a few hours behind me, so it worked perfect me doing this after work because I just do this on the side for now.
Yeah.
No, that's a lot. It's funny. I was in high school in grade 9. I was in West Side Story. I was a shark. And in grade 12, I was in Little Shop of Horrors, and I played Audrey too. And Amazing. Then me thinking the schedule was like, oh, I got to do this after school. I got to come in on Saturday. It's a lot. You're doing 3 shows basically all at once is insane. Yeah,
it is. It's definitely a switch going from like you just did The Little Mermaid last night, and now you're doing Newsies today.
It's again, it might be another dumb question. Is there any point of when you're doing Newsies that you're thinking about Little Mermaid or vice versa, or is it like you are focused on 1000%?
Yeah, I'm pretty much like I'm locked into whatever show we're in.
Right.
I think it's for me at least. That's the only way that I can survive. Is I drop everything else that I know from any other show I've ever done, and I just like focus on what needs to happen in that moment.
100%. That makes sense. I got 2 more little segments for you. So the second last one is Danny's Dandruff Diaries, the Flaky 8. So it's 8 rapid fire questions. Okay. So first one is, what was your first thought when you saw the name Danny Dandruff in the script, or Dandruff Danny?
Yeah. Okay. So my first thought, so I was given the name from the background director, right? So the funny part is I have this whole conversation with her. She's like, you're going to be Dandruff Danny. I run up to my mom and I say, Mom, I have a name. She goes, you have a name? And I'm like, it's Dandruff Danny. And she's like, Dandruff Danny? What does that even mean? I was like, I don't know. I was like, but I have a name.
It's a name. That's funny.
So that was my initial reaction, was running to tell my mom.
Okay. What was the dandruff made out of? Do you know?
It was potato flakes.
Oh, okay. Fair.
Like instant mashed potatoes. Just add water.
Oh, there we go.
Which every time I took a shower.
Which cast member broke character the most when filming?
I'd probably say Miley, honestly.
Yeah.
She's just like, she's goofy. So whenever there's a moment to goof off or just like, whoops, she would like, it would burst into laughter.
Right. Who's the kindest person to you on set? You said Miley, correct?
Also Miley. Yeah. Miley and Billy Ray.
Really? Yeah. Jalen mentioned the same thing about Billy, just being really, really kind.
So kind. Like whenever he wasn't in a scene, he would obviously watch Miley, and like, he's just this like gentle giant. Like, he's just so chill. He would just like hang out on the side and play guitar. He was so nice.
I love it. Do you ever think Danny had a secret backstory that we never got to see?
Dancing, actually. So there was an episode that they were going to have me dance, and then they ended up cutting it. Oh. So yeah, there was an actual secret where, so because the background director knew that I had this dancing capability, she told the writers, she said, hey, like, this kid can really dance. You should write this in. And there was going to be this sort of like dreamscape moment of like everybody having this thing, and I was going to dance in it. And then they ended up cutting it.
Oh, that would have been so funny.
His secret backstory is he's a trained ballet dancer.
Well, hey, that makes sense. If you could reboot Danny today, what's his life like in 2025?
Oh, what's his life like today? I feel like, well, hopefully he doesn't have dandruff.
Technology and like things have come a long way. You hopefully have been
mean.
figured out by now.
Yeah, I really hope that he doesn't have dandruff anymore. I'd say he's probably in some sort of like IT position. Like I feel like he probably went on to continue with his schooling. He was kind of a nerd.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's probably running some sort of big business situation with like a really nice coif of hair.
With no dandruff. Last one on this one was finish this sentence. I may have had dandruff, but at least I never blank.
May have had dandruff, but at least I never. Oh, okay, that's hard. I may have had dandruff, but at least I never quit. I feel like would be the answer because Dandruff Danny was always there, and
that's true. He was always involved. Like the "I'm with you, sister" line.
Exactly. Yeah, he was always there. He didn't care. He didn't care that nobody particularly loved him.
Exactly. All right. Absolute last thing, Jack. I asked this at all my guests: is what's one thing you miss most about being a kid?
One thing I miss most, I think the wonder. Like everything was so new and so fresh. And I feel like now there's this sense of like, oh, I like to recognize something before I go into it, or I can immediately go, oh, I've done something like this before. And when I was younger, I was so fearless and I didn't care that I didn't know what I was doing.
No, 100%. I agree with you. That's a perfect answer. No one's has said that one before. So awesome. Well, Jack, dude, thank you so much. This was amazing. You let me ask you all these questions for the last hour and bug you. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on here. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And that was the Quinn Marr Show.